All praise to Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Right, Shabbat Shalom. Right, Shabbat Shalom. Lord willing, everyone is well. Right, another Sabbath. Right, and Lord willing, everyone's keeping well. Shem Yahushai. Right, shalom to the ancient men, women. Shalom to the men and women in this truth. The children. Right, fighting the demons, temptations, the lust, enduring until we see Yahweh Shai, man. But all praise to the Most High, man. So, hey, right now, still the Sabbath. Right, we're still kind of going through. We're still in the Sabbath, man. So really should still be what's the word, man? What's the word? In the spirit of the Sabbath, man. Right, you don't want to now you're breaking the Shabbat. You're just being lazy, right? Just doing God knows what, right? You don't want to be in that kind of spirit, man, right? So, kind of going into the topic of Levitcus 7, trespass offerings, the tabernacle. What tabernacle? Let me change that. And sacrifices, right? So, I pray for the Most High. So, let's go to that. So this is Leviticus, Sirach 7 verse 15. Hate not laborious work, neither husbandry, which the Most High have ordained. So you can't, oh, well, I don't want to be at camp. I don't want to be involved, right? And obviously brothers may not be at camp because of, being unclean or other, issues, right? Funeral or, these kind of things. But essentially, you want to be putting your hand to the plow, right? You don't want to be, in the spirit of, being lazy, right? Get that Proverbs 6. This book of Proverbs, chapter 6. Let's see that, right? This is the book of Proverbs 6 and 6. It says, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise." Are you the lazy Jake? You don't want to go out and prophesy. Even prophesy for the wind, you don't want to do that. You don't want to hold camp. You want to, do whatever you want to do when it's a holy day. You want to freak off, right? Hey, the Most High is not dealing with that. Look at the ant. The ant's always working, man. And really, look at beavers. Just real quick, let me get another precept in the book of Job, chapter 12, verse 6. So just a quick precept, so you don't know they're going off. Right, Job 12 and 6. All right, so Job 12, not 6, obviously. Job 12 and verse 7. But now, so like Job 12 and 7. But ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall teach thee. So a brother say, okay, the Sabbath is not on the it's not on the so-called Saturday, because really it's Friday sundown or Friday at even to Saturday at even, right? And chiefly that at even is going into. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dark for it to be the Sabbath, right? But let's go look. Beavers. The beavers, they observe the Sabbath, man. Right? They say, beavers, they observe the Sabbath, man. Right? And it's not on a Tuesday, right? Or Wednesday. It says, the claim that beavers observe the seventh-day Sabbath comes from an anecdotal and religious claims, right? Most notably a 16-year observational video project. For 16 years, this brother it might be an Edomite. Right? Esau still is your brother, but no, this guy Laren Cole. It says he claimed a specific family of wild beavers stayed inside their lodge. Right? They say it's not scientifically backed. Right? See that? So that's what he saw. Right? And we're gonna use that. Right? Let's see. That isn't the focus of the lesson, but hey, the beasts and the animals, you can see that, man. See that? Now shit going off. But this guy, this Laren Cole, right, we'll get rid of that. This Laren Cole, he a 16-year project. That's a lot of witnesses, right? But hey, we praise to the Most High. So let's go to the book of Psalms, right? Chapter 119 and verse 19. Right? Verse 18. The book of Psalms chapter 119 and verse 18. It says, "Open thou mine eyes, that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law." So there's wondrous things in the law, man. Christians, a plain Christian, no, I don't like that law. I don't like that. And get all emotional, right? But there's wondrous things that come out of the law, man. So if you're not keeping the law, because you're under the law of liberty, but we don't abuse the grace of Yahweh Shem Shai, because you're going to be judged for that. You want to abuse the grace, you know, when you use it, we're going to be judged for that. Even myself, the grace that I've abused, we're going to be judged for that. That and it is what it is. Bro, saying, oh no, maybe I have it. Hey, she is what it is. But within the law, there's wondrous things, man. Right? Let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 24. It might be 23 rather. Right, Matthew 23. And I'll jump to verse number. It's 24. Matthew 24, and I think it's in the 30s. So it's Matthew 24, and I'll start from verse number 35. It says, "Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." So the word, the scriptures, the things we're reading and we listen to, this paper is gonna melt. So no, it's not gonna be. The word is gonna obviously be gone, man. Right? The word is obviously gonna be gone. Right? It's literally the word that, you know, is told to us, you know, through the Spirit, man. Right? I literally read this on the Sabbath call, man. You know, that's it. Luke 16, right? Right? No, Matthew 16. Right? Matthew 16. All right? And Christ says to Peter, this is not a fleshly thing, a carnal thing. It's Matthew 16 and 17. "And Yahushua said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven." So that's really how we get that word, right? That's really how we get that word, man, through the Spirit, right? It's not a carnal thing. So even the law is spiritual. So when you read in the law isn't something that's a carnal thing, it's a spiritual thing, right? So this is Romans chapter 7 and verse number 14. Because obviously the law being spiritual, meaning there's a reason for things being done on a physical level that have a spiritual meaning to them, right? You know, even the sacrifices, and obviously people say, the sacrifices, are they done away with? No, they're not done away with. Sacrifices aren't done away with. People are scratching their heads going, huh? I seen brothers say this, talking about animal sacrifice. Well, we have to get the full context, right? Because when we go to it in the book of Ezekiel, in the around the 40s and on 40, Ezekiel 40 going onwards, you see that whole act of sacrificing animals is still being done, right? So it says Romans 7 and 14. It says, For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. Right? So, the law itself is a spiritual thing. Those that are spiritual, right, they're able to please the Most High. They're not carnal. They're not moving in the flesh. They don't lust after some other brother's wife at a feast day and plot and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to see you later. Right? So this is Romans. Or they don't lust after breaking the Sabbath, man, or fornicating, right? Or masturbation, or things that are contrary and really the spirit of error. They don't lust after these things. And that's really how you know that the law, right, is what, man? It's something that kills the flesh. That's what the law does. That's why it's spiritual, because it convicts you and shows you your wrongdoing, shows you where you fall short. People, I fell short, but you got to keep the law, because that's what you're measured by. You're measured by these scriptures, man. You're not measured by some guy with a tape measure, man. And then he pushes the button down and it slaps you in the head, right? This is Romans 8 and verse 5. It says, for they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the spirit, the things that are of the spirit. So us that are moving in the spirit, right? If you're watching this breakdown, you should be moving in the spirit. You're in the truth, you got fringes on. And if you don't have fringes on, hey, you need to hit up, right? Always shout it out, fringe and stitch. It's fringe and stitch, right? You got Covenant Clothing, right? And Lily Works, right? Top 3 brands in Israel right now, right? And you also got, the brother in the States, Araya, right? I believe it's Chosen Wear, right? So if you don't have these, and these things, I'm not saying it for no reason, really these things are things of the spirit, because they're helping brothers and sisters keep commandments, right? Through their faith. It says, verse 6, it says, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace, man. And that's what we're aiming for, right? So let's go, right? So let's just some quick history, right? So the tabernacle, right, or the first, the tabernacle being set up, we're looking around, your 15. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're looking at around maybe, I think it's 14, right? Your 14 tabernacle set up around maybe your 1460 BC. Set up around 1460 BC, right? Around that time period, right? That's the tabernacle. They might say no, right? So we're close, right? We're close. So this is the time period of the Exodus, right? And obviously we're gonna get down. We're not gonna go all the way to the tabernacle, right? We're not gonna go through you can't even go in there, because you'd have to show, hey, who's your dad? Like, who's your father? If you couldn't show your father, it says like a stranger shall not come near, right? So, hey, look, so that's the first tabernacle. Because remember, you have types of priesthoods as well. Lord wouldn't kind of do a topic or a lesson on priesthoods, because you got different priesthoods that took place, right? You got something called a patriarchal, see that? Priesthood, right? We'll get into this thing. So the patriarchal priesthood is your Enoch, right? Your Enochs, your Noahs, your Abrahams, your Isaacs, your Jacobs, right? Adam, right? These are really, in the Bible, those, even Job, right? So Job was one of the sons of God, right? So we have to get into these things, otherwise we're just going to be winging it. So the patriarchal priesthood. So there's no term, right, for it, but it says, however, family heads, which is obviously the males, function as priests by building altars, offering sacrifices, and blessing their households before the formal Levitical priesthood was established. So you had Abraham, Noah, Job. See Job. So Job was one of the patriarchs, man. He wasn't some heathen, right, with a leprous skin, right? So let's get an example of that real quick, right? Genesis 14, even Genesis 22, right? Genesis 14 and verse number, Genesis 14, and I'll start from verse, so, really going into that, obviously this Melchizedek we know is Yahushua, right? This is Genesis 14 and 18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, right? So Melchizedek, he brought forth bread and wine, right? And that's obviously showing you how that is Yahushua HaMashiach, right? It's like going on, who can charge it, right? Funny charger spirit, right? So there we go. Reading on, Genesis 14 and 18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abraham of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth." So Abraham being what? Going into the patriarchs, man, right? Who do we have? We also have Adam, right? Adam, he done his sacrifices too, right? This is Genesis chapter 3 and verse number 20. Genesis 3, and I'll start from verse 21. It says, "And unto Adam," Genesis 3 and 21, "unto Adam also and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins and clothe them." So what's this going into? The coats of skins. That's going into that animal sacrifice. So them having that, and that's literally them, what's that? Atoning for their sins, right? Through those animals, right? Through those coats of skins, right? Let's get another one. Genesis 22, right? Genesis 22, you know, Genesis 22 and verse 3. It says, "And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son and clave the wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went to the place which Yahweh had told him." So, hey, this is Abraham doing what? Keeping that patriarchal priesthood, man. Right, prior to the Levites even being, so that's the spirit. That's the spirit, man. That's the spirit all praise to the Most High. You open up a book and it's straight to where you want it to be, right? So Abraham, he done that, right? So let's see if we can pull up like a picture, right? So again, tabernacle being set up, right? And because you have a high date for the Exodus and a low date, right? So the low date is not, it doesn't even align up, man. You know, you got the high date going to around 1446 BC for the Exodus. The low date is around 1200 BC, which is very far-fetched. And that doesn't align with what is written in the book of, I believe it's First Kings, regarding the time period from when the children of Israel had come out of Egypt until when Solomon had built the temple, right? So, again, I'm going to look at, right, because I've got some points, right? We're kind of going to go through it. So the Levites, man, and there's a difference between a Levite and the sons of Aaron, right? There's a difference, right? Let's get Exodus. And the sons of Aaron, hey, they got, let's see, Exodus 32. It's book of Exodus, chapter 32, and verse number, all right, so the Levites, they had a different spirit, man. Right? They had a different spirit. So this is Exodus chapter 32, and I'm going to read verse number I remember the Levites, they were kind of, I won't say like authoritative. They kind of had, they're like the police, man. Very, you know, not like, like you have the Maccabees, so to say, the hammer, right? Very, they were strict, man. They kind of run you up out of the damn, run you up out of the damn tabernacle, man. Get the hell out. You're going off, right? So this is Exodus 32 and 28. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. So hey, Moses said, who's on the Lord's side, who's on Satan's side, right? And Christians, they said, I'll be on Satan's side, right? So when you read that, I jump to verse 26. Then Moses stood in the gate of the camp, and the gate of the camp goes back to what? The chief place where important councils would happen, the entering of the gate, really the high position of, for example, like Lot, right? It says that he pitched his gate towards Sodom. And then when you read Genesis 19:1, it says he was in the gates of Sodom. So he kind of moved up. And you don't want to move up in anything to do with Sodom, anything whatsoever, right? This is Exodus 32 and 26. Then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves unto him. So they were serious, man. Right? They were serious. The Levites weren't to be played with, man. Right? They were serious. The Levites were serious, man. Right? And you had to be serious, man. You're dealing with the sacrifices. You're dealing with the offerings. You're dealing with moving this. You're dealing with that. Right? I remember the Levites, Lord willing, will go to it. Right? So this is Genesis 49 and verse 5. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitation. That's why you got these, so-called Haitians, right? And you have to be intellectually honest. Just because you're Haitian doesn't mean you're a Levite. Right? We have to be intellectually honest, right? But the Levites, instruments of course, you can kind of see in their spirit, a little witchcraft, and taking the Lord's sacrifices, and they kind of remix it, right, and make up. Now they're doing disappearing acts in the middle of the day, right? It says verse 6, O my soul, come not thou into their secret unto the assembly of my honor, be not united, for in their anger they slew a man, and in their self they dig down a woman. So they were, right, they were on go, right? They must have seen, I think it's Shechem, and they kind of, right? Right, it says Genesis chapter 49 and verse 7. It says, cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So, in the land, when you go into the Levites, they never really had an allotted plot of land, right? So when you go into, let's go into Numbers 45. They had cities, right? And I'll kind of yield on this point, and we'll kind of go into the trespass offerings. So this is Numbers 35 and verse 2. And you could even read Numbers 17, which solidified the role of the Levites and how they were ordained to do the office that they were given. Right? A Judite couldn't roll up, and he starts touching the ark, man. And he gets electrocuted, he's shaking, he's stuck, and someone has to get a damn piece of wood and take him off of the ark because the Most High struck him down. He's holding the damn, right? Right, it says Numbers 35 and 2. It says, command the children of Israel that they give unto the Levites of the inheritance of their possession cities to dwell in, and ye shall give also unto the Levites suburbs for the cities round about them. Because the Levites, they would have been scattered throughout, right? It's not just one Levite, man. And that being said, there's not just one Levite, meaning there's not just one Torah. I don't believe these Muslims that say, okay, there's only one Bible. There's one Bible. No, there would have been multiple copies of the laws, right? There would have been multiple copies. So when you look at Numbers 30, Numbers 35, cities uh, of Levi, right? See that? So you got cities of refuge, and then you would have also had just the cities that were of the Levites, because the Levites would have dwelt throughout, man. All right, now it's down miniature. All right, see that? Some kind of a deep. All right, what the hell is this? All right, so you see that you got cities of refuge where the let's say someone killed someone, the event that person would have to flee to, let's say, Golan in East Manasseh, and the avenger of blood, he would have pursued him, and if he made it to that city, then he was safe. If he didn't, and the avenger of blood got him, he would have hit him with a fire, right? Kadesh and Naphtali, Shechem. So you had 3 cities of refuge on either side, right? Shechem, Hebron, Bezer, Ramoth Gilead, right? And then you have Levitical cities, right? You got the green dots throughout, right? You got the green dots, right? Showing those Levitical cities, man. So they didn't have an allotted land, right? But let's go to Lord and we can get through this, right? So trespass offerings, man, right? So a trespass offering, right? Now searching Google on Google. So a trespass offering, right? Really going into kind of like so to say, a guilt offering, right? So it says, it says a guilt or reparation offering. So it is a specific biblical sacrifice from the Old Testament, detailed in the book of Leviticus, required when someone unintentionally wronged Yahweh or another person, demanding both a sacrificial lamb or ram and financial restitution, right? So the word is derived from, obviously this is a modern Hebrew term, and we know this Hebrew is not really reliable because of certain nikud or diacritic markers which can change the sound of letters or words depending on where they're positioned. So, what do I want? Right? Kind of dropped my mind. But, all right, so we got it, a trespass offering, right? So let's go to the book of Leviticus. Right? Leviticus, right? Chapter 7. So it's the book of Leviticus, chapter 7. I remember you have different types of offerings that are done, right? So it's Leviticus chapter 7 and verse number 1. Right? It says, likewise, this is the law of the trespass offering. It is most holy, right? So just a quick one as well. It says, out of the book I'm reading as well, it says, sin offerings and guilt offerings are offerings focused on paying for sin, right? The sins offered, the sin offerings atone for sins against Yahweh. The guilt offering addressed sins against others, and including paying for damages with interest, right? Various animals were offered depending on the person's position and income. See, that's what you call egalitarian, right? Egalitarian meaning it's fair, essentially. This society, they don't care. Yeah, you broke. Hey, why did you do that? Right? But it says it is most holy, right? So let's go to kind of going on. It says so obviously burnt offerings they were killed, and let's pull up a bit of the altar, right? Or tabernacle. Tabernacle. Because everything was positioned in particular. Now they're saying this is the tabernacle. You had a positioning of where things were, right? You have to do a chest. Yeah. So this essentially is I don't know the view, a lens looking down at the tabernacle. So you got, they call that one the seat, the altar, right? And on the sides you would have had the wagons, that were filled with water, and they were, I think you had five on each side, right? So they're saying the way, the truth, and the light. Interesting, right? So you had obviously burnt offerings. They were killed in the same place as guilt offerings, which is on the north side of the altar, right? So if that is the north side of the altar, that would have been on this side, right? But let's go to Levitcus. We'll probably have to open quite a few tabs, right? Levitcus 1 and 2. So when you read through Levitcus, you'll be able to see, I cannot spell, Leviticus 1 and verse 2. It reads, I'll start from 1. Leviticus 1 and 1. And the Lord called unto Moses and spake unto him out of the tabernacle of the congregation. It says, verse 2, speak unto the children of Israel, if any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your offering of the cattle, even the herd, and of the flock. So you can't bring, oh yeah, hold on, right? I got this, brother said I got a frog, right? Or I've got a cat. You couldn't bring any and everything to be sacrificed, man. You couldn't bring something that was unclean and you're bringing it up, and they might have beat you up, man. The Levites might say, "Yo, Salakia," you would have heard some alarm, right? This guy's bringing, because really in that in this region, there was no you couldn't read. There was a place really of peace, So when you read in 1 Kings 1 with right, maybe I'll get it. Right? When you read in 1 Kings 1, it tells you about men, one of the men, right, he held on to the altar, man, to try and get have mercy put upon him, right? But let's go back to it. Lord willing, maybe I'll put this is Job 14 and verse 4. It says, Job 14 and verse 4. It says, who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. So you can't bring something that's unclean and then bring it before, even within the vicinity of a holy place, man. Because, and the spirit behind that, really, when you read Exodus, right, 3, right? This is Exodus 3 and verse number 5. It says, and he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. So some places there you can't just, dogs coming in and the shoes and damn walking on the settee or the chair with, all your damn dirty shoes, man. It's off, right? So you can't bring a clean thing out of something that's unclean. Let's go to 1 Maccabees 1. It's the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, and verse number, start from, because you had these devils that came into the sanctuary, right? And they brought pig and all these unclean animals, right? So this is first, you see that? 1 Maccabees 1 and 46, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people. It says, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. See that? So that was all done. People, they done that, man. They done that literally, right? So you couldn't bring any and everything. So this is really going into like, obviously clean animals, right? So your clean animals, the sheep, the lamb, your goats, your bisons, the cows, right? See that? So we got the cattle, oxen, bulls without blemish. So you couldn't bring a bull and his ear flapping down, or I don't know, man, right? It's kind of stumbling, right? The bull would have to be without blemish, man, right? Let's see if we can get precept on it. Right, let's go to Leviticus chapter 5. Right, let's go to Leviticus chapter 16. And we understand that, we should understand that anyway, because even Exodus 12, right? I don't want to open up too many slides. Exodus 12, right? It tells us about the lamb, which is Yahushua, the lamb without blemish, right? Look, this is Exodus 12 and verse 5. It says, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or the goat or from the goats. So it's got to be without blemish. It can't be tarnished, and it can't be tarnished. It has to be spotless, right? So let's go to Leviticus, another precept. Leviticus, let's see, 16. Let's see, it might not be in this chapter. Right, and this, obviously, this is a different type of offering. But I'm going to see if it mentions about let's get another one. All right, get another one. Like Christ obviously being the lamb, and Christ, it's really a anthropomorphic language, talking of Christ when it's saying about the lamb, right? This is John chapter 1 and verse number 29. It says, the next day John seeth Yahushua coming unto him, and saith, behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. So you would have sins, right, that obviously, through that through that offering, they would be able to take away sins, right? Because essentially, it's almost like even in the account of Levitcus 16, or even in Genesis, I believe it's 48, you can pass on a blessing, by laying on, like I said about laying on of hands, right? So let's go to, so we read Leviticus 1 and 2, and these same, like I said about the different types, right? Let's see. So this is Leviticus. It tells you about the different Leviticus 1 and 2. The livestock. You have the herd, which is larger bovine livestock, right? So we'll read it here. Cattle, bulls, oxen, right? So then you got calves, and you want to read. It's a kid of the goats. Your child. Oh yeah, that's my kids. No, that's talking about goats or lambs, so to say. It's really children. Your human, let's say son or daughter or whatever. That's children. That's not a kid. A kid refers to the flocks or herds, whichever animal it may be. That's why it says kids. See that? So you got the calves, the yearlings, the younger cattle. Right, immature offering was specified by ritual guidelines. You got sheep, rams, smaller, these animals, goats, he-goats, kids, right? It's not talking about literal kids. I need to flag the channel, right? So, and these were killed on the north side of the altar, right? Let's go to Leviticus 1 and verse 11. It's the book of Leviticus, chapter 1 and verse 11. It says, "And he shall kill it on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and the priests, Aaron's sons." So this is the differentiation between the Levites and those that were descendants of Aaron's sons, right? "Shall sprinkle his blood round about upon the altar." So let's go back to that image. So if this is the north side of the altar would have been this side here. So you would have had that, like it says, let's do this. You would have had slaughtered, the cattle, right, on the northward, right, on the side of the altar northward, right. Let's make sure that is northward, right. Right, see that's on the north side of the altar. Then the priest, right, so the north side of the altar, right, as it's shown here, would be on this region here, right? So that's where that would have been slaughtered. And then obviously the guilt offerings, like we read, they would be done in the same place, right? So go to Leviticus 7 and verse 2. Right, it says, so this is going back to the point now, Leviticus 7 and 2, "In the place where they kill the burnt offering," right, and the burnt offering, we're reading that here in Leviticus 1, right? So it's Leviticus, let's see, 1 and verse 3, "If his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish, and it says, he shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation." So, and obviously the door, obviously representing Yahushua, right, in the book of John, chapter 10, right, he's the door, right. So that the burnt offering, they were killed on the north side, right. So it's Leviticus 7 and 2, "In the place where they kill the burnt offering, shall they kill the trespass offering, and the blood thereof shall he sprinkle round about." So obviously the blood represents a covenant, right, being had for for a life agreement. It's a contract, right. They even have the term blood brothers, right, meaning you're in this for life. Right, that is truth. You've made a covenant. Our forefathers made a covenant. You say, okay, well, I used to be an Israelite. Hey, you see them people avoid people like that. Or I used to be an Israelite. How can you used to be a nationality? Ain't no I used to. Right? You rejected. You're moving like Esau. Right? Though the covenant was never to be his in the first place. Right? But it says, blood brothers are two or more people, right, are not related by birth, but have made a strong promise of lifelong loyalty. So that's really what a blood covenant is, right? Or blood brothers. But let's get blood covenant. So a blood covenant is a solemn, binding agreement between two or more parties, sealed by the mingling or shedding of blood. Historically and culturally, it is viewed as the deepest and most permanent form of pledge possible, symbolizing an exchange of life, total loyalty, and shared assets between participants. We don't now you're saying to the Most High, you got to share, that's off, right? He even thought of that. He telling the Most High, so you got to budge up on the throne a bit. You got to make some space. You're going off, man. That's really wicked, right? Right. So let's even show that. Let's show that Leviticus 17, right? It's life in the blood. right? Even Hebrews. This is Leviticus 17 and verse number 10. All right, it says, and whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, these strangers, right? It's obviously talking about Israelite strangers, right? Because Israelite strangers would have been in the land of, Naphtali, come down to Gad. He's a stranger in that land, right? It says, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood and will cut him off from among his people, right? Verse 11, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul, right? We get one more. It says, therefore I said unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourneth among you eat blood. So you're not supposed to eat blood, because there's life in that blood, right? And that's a life agreement that we just read, that, you're coming into a power with me. And that's why, and we bring it out, right? You don't do that. You don't do them things, right? Let's get that as well. Leviticus 15, verse 23. Leviticus 15, and I start at 19, right? I start at verse 24, rather. 23. Right? Leviticus 15 and 23. Okay, 19. Right? Leviticus 15 and verse 19. It says, and if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the evening. So straight up and down, you do not do this wicked act, right? Of this, man, right? Hey, people do that, right? So you're gonna find one video, right? The one video, and it's demonic Edomite, right? It's talking about how, saying, oh yeah, black women, they have the best this and blood and some madness. I think it's this video. Yeah, it's this one. Let's see. Right. You can't hear it, right? You can't hear it. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna share that because that's important, man. Right, that's important because he's talking about how,
and then they would have them abort the baby at like 7-8 months. Yep. They would exsanguinate it. Not just it was blood, but it's bone marrow, everything. And he was injecting himself. So he thought it was better if it was part of his genetics, which is he would have a better uptake of this. And so we have a clip of him sitting there, and the women start getting really grossed out that he wants their blood. Here it is.
Stem cell technology that Peter and I are investing in that's called SCNT, which takes the egg of a young, perfect woman specimen, takes the egg and takes out the nucleus and puts our DNA in the nucleus. They just go in and take it out.
It's painful, right?
Huh?
Is it painful?
Yeah, see, what the hell were these Eves doing with these two demonic, creating beings that probably they're no longer here? Right?
And this is part of this genetic greatness that we don't see in any other race on the planet. These curvy, sexy black women from Africa. You girls have a kind of a monopoly on this genetic perfection, and we want some of that.
She's going off. He said, we want some of that. He's banging the table, man. right? So he's off. Right, so let's go back to it, man. So there's life in the blood, man. So, you know, let's get another piece in. All right. So you don't lie with your woman when she's on her time, man. That's evil. It's evil and it's wicked. Right. Let's go to Hebrews 10. Right. Hebrews 10. Look at that, man. Right. Hebrews 10. Right. So it's the book of Hebrews, chapter 10. Right. And I'll start from verse number. Because essentially, through the body of Yahushua, right, his blood is shed or had been shed so that what we can have remission of sin, man. We can have grace, we can have mercy, we can repent, right? The so-called Chinese man, hey, he's not repenting. He can't repent, right? Right. So it's the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, and I'll start from verse 10. It says, by the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahushua Mashiach once and for all. So straight up and down, through the body of Christ, that's what's allowing us to what, man? To have mercy. That's what's allowing us to repent, man. Right? Because Christ's blood wasn't shed for all. Right? So this is Hebrews 9 and verse, and it wasn't. People say, oh, Christ died. No, it wasn't. No, he didn't. He did not. Right? This is, let's see, yeah, it's a good precept. Hebrews 9 and 12. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood. And say, okay, this is the Most High. That's you're going off. Right? This is Christ. But by his own blood, he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. Right? Because the priests in the priesthood, they kind of go in there, okay, go in there again, and then they kind of go in and again, and then they doing a sacrifice for themselves, and then they go in again, and they come out, and then they go in and they cough in, you know. And it must be a sweet smell, man. You're just surrounded by the incense, right? The candlestick, and the candlestick it wasn't a 9 menorah candlestick, man. It was 7, right? And then you're surrounded, because remember, around the tabernacle, you would have the different families. You had the families of Gershon, Memrari, right? And you had Moses and Aaron, their families that were in front of the tabernacle door, and you had the families of Kohath, right? So let me jump down to verse 15. So this is Hebrews 9 and 15. It says, and for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. So those that were under the first testament, that's going into the Israelites in the wilderness, right? And that goes into the laws of redemption, Levitcus 25. Those are the people that were under the first testament. They are the ones that are able to receive that redemption, right? To be redeemed, to be saved, right, from their enemies, right? That's us in this modern time today, right? So blood represents life, right? And Christ, you know, again, the lamb slain for the foundation of the earth, man. Right? So this is the book of Revelation, chapter 5, and I'll start at verse 6. It says, Revelation 5 and 6, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of Yahweh sent forth into all the earth. So that lamb, right, is going into Yahushua as if it had been slain. So the blood that came from that lamb, that's the blood that what would have covered the sins of the children of Israel, right? Let's get Galatians chapter 1 and verse number 4. There's another cut to show Galatians being to the children of Israel, right? It's Galatians chapter 1 and verse number 4, it says, who gave himself for our sins, that he might deliver us from this present evil world, according to the will of Yahweh and our Father. So, straight up and down, right, and we'll get another precept to go with that, right? Acts 5, right, about the blood, right, being covering, right, covering what, man? The blood covering the children of Israel, man. To this day, this is Acts 5 and verse number 31. It says, him have God exalted with his right hand to be a prince and a savior, for to give repentance to Israel and forgiveness of sin. So that repentance, Christ dying, his blood was shed, for the children of Israel to be redeemed out of their captivity. It wasn't for the Edomite man, right? You're trying to use Deuteronomy 29, trying to go around. Imagine being a demon, right? Imagine being a demon. You think, because you go around and you talk to Israelite groups and you make a clip out of it and say, yeah, see, Deuteronomy 29, got you, and you cut the video right there. But you don't cut the rest of where you're literally leaking all over the damn camp. Now you've got to pack up camp. This is John 11 and verse number 49. It says, I'll start at verse 50. Nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perisheth not. The whole nation, talking about the nation of Israel. And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest. And of course, the high priest is going to know this, right? But being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahweh should die for that nation. And not for that nation only, but that he should gather together in one. So these people, they were one, but they need to be gathered back together. Like it says in Amos 9, about the tabernacles of David being restored. The tabernacles of David is a time when Israel was one. It wasn't like how it was between Jeroboam and Rehoboam and Omri and Zimri and Asa, Nadab, Baasha, right? And all these wicked kings and righteous kings as well. They need to be gathered in one, right? So those are the ones that it says, gathered in one, the children of God that were scattered abroad. So that's your northern kingdom and southern kingdom being one stick, right? The stick of Joseph and the stick of Judah being put together. It says, see that? Then from that day forth, they took counsel to put him to death, right? So when you go to Isaiah 53, right? It's Isaiah 53. Again, right? Isaiah 53 and verse number 7. It says, he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. So that's talking about Yahweh, right? Let's get another one. Daniel 9, verse 27. All right, Daniel 9, verse, I'll start 26. Daniel 9 and 26. And after 62 weeks, shall Messiah, who's Messiah? Is talking about the Most High, also Rebel, who, right, be cut off, but not for himself. So the Messiah will be cut off, not for himself. He'll be cut off for who? For the people, right? That's literally what that's going into, right? So let's go back to, right? Let's get another precept, right? Leviticus 4. So it's Leviticus 4 and verse number 5, right? It says, and the priest that is anointed shall take of the bullock's blood and bring it to the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle of the blood 7 times before the Lord, before the veil of the sanctuary, right? See that? So you got the veil, right? The veil of the sanctuary. So you kind of dip his finger in, kind of would done this, and kind of, right? So literally, again, no blood is to be eaten. You're supposed to eat the blood, right? Oh, blue steak, right? Blue steak, right? You type in, can you eat blood? Eat bloody beef. Is it healthy? Right? You eat them. Oh, yes, it is. It's great for you. Watch them say that. You see? You see, very healthy. See? Right? Here is rare steak. They say though the liquid is not actually, it's not cooked, man. Right? It's not cooked. Muscle protein. Right? Since it's not actually blood. It's not actually, doesn't mean it's not fully. Right? You don't eat that. Cook your meat. Well done. How do you like that? Well done. Right? Let's go to the book or we read Levitcus. Right? And that's another one. Let's get this one as well. Blood is completely prohibited. Right? Acts 15 and verse number 19. Right? It's Acts 15 and verse 19. And this was a commandment or a wise way to go about those Israelites that were coming back into the faith. Wherefore my sentence is, this is Acts 15 and 19. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not done from, it's like which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yahweh. So those that are coming back into the faith, you're not going to give them some heavy break. Hey, tomorrow's Passover. You got your fringes, you got this. They just about got the breakdown. Right, reading on it says, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols. So that's that halal meat. Right, you abstain from that. Abstain from those halal meats. You abstain from the damn, I don't know. Right, you do your research. And from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. Right, because if they'd done that, it said that they would do well. Right, reading on it says, well, that was the point, right? In 19, stay away from blood, right? So blood, obviously, we know is used for forgiveness, a covenant. Christ's blood is holy for us. It's an everlasting covenant that covers a multitude of sin, right? So let's get another one. All right, Exodus 24. All right. Exodus 24, verse 8. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold the blood of the covenant, which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. So blood literally was used to seal covenants, right? Agreements, like long-term binding contracts. Before you would sign something, blood would really, even in a marriage, man, right? Marriage would be literally, to take out the white sheets, to prove that, the consummation of the marriage happened and this woman was actually a virgin. Right? Let's get another one. Right? Exodus 12. Right? Verse 7. The book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse number 7. It says, and they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. So wherever you would have your Passover meal, really would have the blood put over the side post, man, of that the lamb without blemish that you would have had, right? Let's get one more. Right. Genesis 15 and 9. Genesis 15 and verse 9. It says, and he said unto him, take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another, but the birds he divided not. Right? So, let's see. I want that. right? I mean, let me see. I don't know if I wanted that. Yeah, I don't think I wanted that still, right? But um, and even when it came to offerings as well, the fat. You have the fat of an animal, right? You can't eat fat. People say, "Oh, you can't eat fat." You can't eat the fat, but it's in context to say for the Passover, you shouldn't eat the fat for that sacrifice, right? Now you're trying to eat fat, you got to burn that. That's the best bits. That's for the Most High, right? Let's go to Leviticus 7 and verse number 3. So Leviticus 7 and verse 3, it says, "And he shall offer it, all the fat thereof, the rump, and the fat that covereth the inwards." So you got to get the context of it. It's obviously the fat that it's pertaining to is obviously it's going into the best bits, right? And it's going into the specific sacrifices that were to be done, right? So you can obviously eat the fat, but we'll show which, we'll show that you can, because really, right? When you look at steak has right. I think it's steak or beef, right? So yeah, so steak has certain cuts of fat, not cuts of fat, but it has fat going completely through it. Where a lot of the time where you see the white bit on it. Now, brother, watching this, oh, I'm hungry. But you have certain meats where they have fat running completely through them. Right, let me see if I can find that. Right, meats that have fats through them even after being cooked. Let's see. See that? So you got ribeye. Well, we're not dealing with that, right? But you got ribeye steak, right? You got this abomination. If you're watching this, you shouldn't be eating that. Beef brisket, right? It has heavy fat cap and internal fat veins that break down during long, slow cooking. So now you can't eat that. Now you can't eat ribeye steak. Now you can't eat beef short ribs with the intramuscular fats that melts, right? Or lamb shoulder, right? You can't eat these things because they have fats running through it, right? So we don't eat fats pertaining to the sacrifices. It's Genesis 4 and verse number 4. Genesis 4 and verse number 4. It says, "And Abel, he also brought the firstling of his flock, and of the fat thereof," because the fat really is that best bit, right? The best bit is the fat, right? Let's see. Why was the fat the best bit? Why is the fat the best bit? See that? It acts as a flavor sponge. So the fat on a steak or piece of roasted meat is often considered the best part because it acts as a flavor sponge. Animals fat traps and holds fat soluble taste molecules from the animal's diet, turning the fat into concentrated reservoir of rich savory flavor. Right? Some people are watching this. Oh my gosh, start losing their mind. Right? Point being is that on certain foods, right? You literally, right? You couldn't eat them, right? So the fat was the best bit thereof. So that would be the most highest, right? And you had the sons of Eli, Remember, Eli, he never really rebuked his sons. They really should have really been killed for their act of taking the meats. Taking the meats. Give me that. I'll read this one in another translation. Right. So this is 1 Samuel 2 and verse number 12. So it says that they were men, sons of Belial, I think it is. Men of, they're worthless. So when you see a heathen, you should say, let's get a pronunciation so we can use this term. Right. You'll come up with you got to diversify your your insults towards the heathen. Right? You say, oh, you're let's see pronunciation. See that? See, you're a son of Belial, right? You kind of use that one, right? Meaning worthless, right? So this is 1 Samuel 2 and 12. It says, I'll read in the Amplified. Right, so this is Amplified. This is 1 Samuel 2 and 12. It says, 1 Samuel 2 and 12. In the Amplified Bible, it says, it even tells you the sin of Eli's sons. It says, the sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were worthless, dishonorable, unprincipled men. They did not know nor respect the Lord. And the custom of the priest with the sacrifices of the people, when a man was offering a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling, with a 3-pronged meat fork in his hand. Then he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. Everything that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did in Shiloh to all the sacrifices of the Israelites. See that? So you can't offer your sacrifice. I kind of run up. I'm pushing brothers out of the way, right? Dip my fork in. This is mine, right? It says also they burned. Also before they burned, in brackets offered the fat. See that? So this is the part. The priest servant would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, give the priest meat to roast, since he will not accept boiled meat from you, only raw. If the man said to him, certainly they are to burn or offer the fat first, and then you take as much as you want, then the priest servant would say, no, you shall give it to me now, or else I will take it by force. So the sin of the young men, Hophni and Phinehas, was very great before the Lord, for the men treated the offering of the Lord disrespectfully. How dare they? How wicked, right? You see, you kind of take the damn offering, and that's why they were judged. Because remember that priest's office, right, was important. I'm just a Levite, right? That priest's office was important, man. Maybe 17. Right? Priest's office, you had to deal with that. You had to make sure things were in order. You start dropping stuff and whoa, right? You're slipping over the damn, there's candle wax going everywhere, right? The oil on the floor. You haven't got your bonnet on while you're cooking it up, right? This is Numbers chapter 17 and verse number. I'll start from verse number 8. And it came to pass on that morrow that Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi was budded, and brought forth buds and bloomed blossoms and yielded almonds. So this was kind of establishing that the Levites, sons of Aaron, they're going to be the ones that are going to take that office of being in charge, So let's go back to the offerings. Hey, they were serious, man, right? Let's see. The It's good. It's not a precept as well. Right, that brother put out another one. That's a good one. In Nehemiah 8. Now they say it's not in the Bible. Right? Nehemiah 8 is a good one. Right? That's a good precept, very good precept. Right? This is Nehemiah 8, verse number 10. It says, Then he said unto them, Go your way, eat the fat. So now Nehemiah is switching up again. Nehemiah was a holy man, a set apart man. He wore his fringes. He kept the Sabbath day. He brought it out. They lined up. He said, Yo, give me the book of, and obviously remember they would have said this in the ancient Hebrew. Right? Kind of would have, right? And then they would have brought it out. Right? So go your way, eat the fat, and drink the sweet. So, just to harp on the point, eating the fat is not off. Right, let's get another one. Right, Ezekiel, I believe it's 34. Right, Ezekiel 34. This is Ezekiel 34, and I start at verse number 2. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. The shepherds being those that lead the Israelites. Prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God unto the shepherds, Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flock? That's 1 Peter 5 and 2. Feed the flock of God, man. Right? It says, verse 3, Ye eat the fat, and ye clothe you with the wool. Ye kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. Man. So they eat the fat. They're eating the best parts, but they're not even loving their neighbor as thyself. So there's no sin to eat the fat. You taking the best bits when it comes to offering. I think there's one in maybe Leviticus 17, right? Leviticus 17, the last verse. Right, see that? 17. No, not 17. Maybe 13. Right, there's a precept, and it tells you you wouldn't. The fat is the Lord's direction. Right. Not 16, maybe 13. Right. No, it's not 13. It can't be 13. Right. So that's it. Right. So the fat, 17. Right. So that's it. What's that? That's it. See that? It's Leviticus 3 and verse 17. Right? Leviticus 3 and verse 17. So this is in context. We'll read it from 1. This is in context to what the Leviticus 13 and 1. It's obviously going into, yeah, exactly like the brother put in the chat. Let me see if I can put it up. Right? So you've got Leviticus 7 and verse 21 to 24. The context is pertaining to peace offerings. So it's particular offerings that would have to be that's an offering. That's not your packed lunch for work today, right? You made you can't offer, let's say, a goat, right? And you've got the fats there. You're looking at the offering now. Looking at the priest is looking at you. You're saying to the priest, Salakia. You're trying to kind of take it off of the damn, off of the altar, saying, "No, hold on." The priest is kind of confounded. He doesn't know what he's kind of doing this. He's scratching his head. Everyone's kind of all paused, right? Priest kind of says, Salakia, what the hell are you doing? Then another priest comes out, and another priest, and then the high priest comes out, and then all hell's breaking loose, right? So going back to it, Leviticus 3 and verse 1, it says, And if his oblation be a sacrifice of a peace offering, if he offer it of the herd, whether it be a male or female, he shall offer it without blemish. So it's going into sacrifices. That's the context. We're going to jump down, right? Leviticus 3 and verse 17. It says, look, I'll start 14. So Leviticus 3:14, it says, and he shall offer thereof his offering, even an offering made by fire unto the Lord, the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards. So the fat that's inside of it, side of the animal and whatnot, right? It says, and the two kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks, right? And the caul above the liver with the kidneys, it shall he take away. So there's certain parts that wouldn't be obviously sacrificed, right? It says they'll be burned upon the altar there, right? Verse 16, and the priest shall burn them upon the altar. It is food, it is the food of the offering made by fire for a sweet savor. All the fat is the Lord's. Now every time, imagine you was to, now you're keeping this, right? You're keeping this, and now you're saying, now you're about to eat steak. Your son, he's never had steak. Your daughter's looking at you. I had my first steak, Daddy. She's cutting the steak, and you're saying, hold on. Leviticus 3:16. Right? That's not it's not a sacrifice. It's not an offering. Right? Verse 17. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations, throughout all your dwellings. It's like Leviticus 3:17. It shall be a perpetual statute for your generations, throughout all your dwellings, that you eat neither fat nor blood. So you're not supposed to eat that, right? You're not supposed to eat that, right? So let's go back to it, right? All right, so this is Leviticus 7 and verse 4. Right, Leviticus 7 and verse 4. And it says, and the two kidneys and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks, and the caul that is above the liver with the kidneys, it shall he take away. So the remainder of that offering will be burnt up as well, right? And that will be burnt up on the altar of burnt offerings, right? Let's show that as well. Just a quick precept. Leviticus 12 and 10, right? Exodus 12 and 10. So likewise with the Passover, right? When the lamb, let's say you left some lamb, you better be scrambling and scraping to find the rest of the lamb. Yeah, you had Passover late, you dropped some fat on the floor, you stepped in it, you better put that in the down, you better burn that. Right? It's Exodus 12 and 10. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth of it until the morning, ye shall burn with fire. See that? So straight up and down, you'd have to burn it. Right? I think the brother kind of brought a precept as well. Let's go to Leviticus 19 and verse 1. Leviticus 19 and verse 2 to 8. Let's see. Yeah, see that? So Leviticus, brother said, Leviticus 19 and verse 2 to 8, showing peace offerings was the regular one Israelites could eat. Right, yeah. So Leviticus, I started 19 and 5. It says, if ye offer a sacrifice of peace offering unto the Lord, ye shall offer it at your own will. Right? That was verse 5. So you should offer that at your own will. It says, verse 6, it shall be eaten the same day you offer it, and on the morrow. And if aught remain until the third day, it shall be burnt with fire. So you're supposed to eat that. Right? And if it be eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable, it shall not be accepted. Right? Therefore, everyone that eateth it shall bear his iniquity, because he hath profaned the hallowed thing of the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people. So this is showing you the levels in which sacrifices were, how important they were. But let's get a quick precept. Right, though this is 1 Samuel 15 and verse 24, it says, 1 Samuel 15, I'll start at verse 22. Right, 1 Samuel 15 and 22, and because when Saul was just going off, man, I believe maybe he had psychosis, or he was troubled. He had a spirit on him. He was so mad. Where's David? I need David. David probably out there slaying a heathen. Saul's on his bed, where's David? Where's David? Right? And I believe, if you watch Game of Thrones, that whole concept of like the Mad King, I feel like that concept, it may be inspired by how Saul was, and his kind of character, not character, but his personality, because Saul was a real person, right? It's 1 Samuel 15 and 22. It says, and Samuel said, have the Lord as great, have the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken better than the fat of rams. So it's better to obey the Most High than to go about, okay, well, let me offer a sacrifice. Let me do this. Right? Leave that to the Levites, man. Right? Leave that to the Levites. Right? Let's go to, because remember, 1 Samuel, about 6 maybe, where you had men, they're trying to touch up the ark, man. You had men, they trying to touch the ark, and they were judged. So the whole, the instruments of the tabernacle, of the temple, right? They were, you couldn't do, and not that anyone could run up and touch and even look, right? This is 1 Samuel chapter 7. Let's see, verse. You had a man that thought he was doing the right thing, and he believed he done the right thing. He touched the ark, and he turned into he was burned up, man. All right, let me see if I can get that right in the book of 1 Samuel. All right, literally in the book of 1 Samuel, right? The book of 1 Samuel. It's a bit later on. Alright, let me see if I can search it. Alright. The man who touched the ark and died. See that? Oh yeah, that's 2 Samuel, but I believe there was one in 1 Samuel also. Right. I believe there was one in 1 Samuel. Right, the 2 Samuel, when they brought the ark back into the city. Right, 2 Samuel 6. Right, let's get that, just to show that point. Right, 2 Samuel 6. Let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse. See that? 2 Samuel 6 and 6. And when they came to the Con's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hands to the ark of Yahweh and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. And this just shows you, yeah, when it comes to the Most High, keep your hands to yourself, man. Verse 7, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and Yahweh smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of Yahweh. So he died. And those thinking, okay, this is a good thing, and this is the right thing for me to do, and hey, that ended in consequences, man. Right? So let's go back to Levitcus chapter 5. right? So Leviticus 7:5, and the priest shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a trespass offering. So, we touched on that, right? Verse 6, it says, every male among the priests shall eat thereof. It shall be eaten in the holy place. It is most holy. So, not everybody is a priest, right? But let's go to get Hosea 3. So it's the book of Hosea, chapter 3, verse number 4. It says, for the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim. So really, there's no priesthood, right? No one, let's say some Haitian guy, right, rolls up, so-called Haitian, rolls up. Yeah, where's the priesthood at? Where's the thing at? Let's say it up. Let's say it up. Hey, no one, you'd have to prove that. Right? You'd have to prove that. You would have to prove your lineage going back to the sons of Aaron. To Aaron, you'd have to show us, and you'd have to roll out. Your brother say, yeah, I can prove it. And he gets the scroll, and he rolls it out, and it rolls down, and he's saying, look, see, son of. Right, this is the book of Ezra, chapter 2, and verse 62. It says, these sought their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy. So there was a time where genealogies, they were available to use, right? It was available, but they were not found, therefore were they as polluted from the priesthood. So because they couldn't find approve their genealogies, they were put away, right? It's 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 4. It says, neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which minister questions rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do. So now you're trying to search up, right? I might touch on the point of haplogroups, right? Right? To kind of go into that, right? So, okay, my dad, you seen, right? You can type it in there, right? A haplogroup. Well, I kind of made a few points on this haplogroup type B, right? Because DNA isn't reliable, right? So a haplogroup, right? So, I've got it searched up, right? So look, it says haplogroup, right? Let's see. So a haplogroup is not the same as ethnicity. A haplogroup doesn't prove it from a certain ethnic group, right? So discovering a specific haplogroup shows a very ancient lineage, but doesn't equate to a modern. It doesn't go that far back. Let's say it doesn't equate to what we call modern terms today, right? So this is the point. It shows prehistoric. It shows human movement, right? And obviously it follows a paternal, which that affairs. But look what it says. It says they represent a tiny fraction of total DNA. So that's not really reliable to go about saying that's me, this is me. Right? So what else have I got? So small samples, they represent a tiny, so expound on this, right? It's got the date that I've done it. So it says to say a haplogroup possesses a tiny fraction of the DNA, it means it completely ignores 99% of your actual ancestry. So that's not reliable. That's not reliable. It says it completely ignores 99% of your actual ancestors. Right? Here's the breakdown. One line versus 1,000. Right? It's obviously we're focusing on the father's line, isn't it? Right? So let's say if you go back 10 generations, you have 1,024 ancestors. A haplogroup tells you about one of them. The other, what? You see that? The other 1,023 ancestors are completely invisible to the haplogroup test. The 99% of DNA, of your DNA, is called autosomal DNA. This is the DNA that actually breaks down your physical traits, your health risks, and your modern ethic breakdowns. So you could have a purely European haplogroup from a single ancestor 500 years ago, but if all your other 100 ancestors were Asian, your autosomal DNA and your actual ethnicity will be 99%. So, in simple terms, right? We're not going off, right? So think of a haplogroup like a single name, and the last page it tells you about one detail but misses the whole story. Right? Here's why it's such a tiny sample. One line of your family tree, right? Paternal, but we're focusing on the paternal. So the haplogroup share, it tells you about exactly one of those 1,024 people. The other 1,023 are completely invisible. See that? So, see that? It says it mixes DNA from all your grandparents and ancestors. This 99% determines your features, your health, your ethnicity, right? So that's another one, right? So another point is that a few points on it. So listen to this. It says a haplogroup can show that two people share a paternal or maternal lineage, but it usually can't establish which historical person they descend from without additional evidence. So to rely totally on that would be it'd be going off. Where I said this proves that. Right? You get one more. Galatians 4. Galatians 4 and verse 6. It says, and because ye are sons, Yahweh hath sent forth the spirit of his son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So he didn't say that he sent forth the damn genealogy, haplo, ancestry, me, Israelite 144 kit, right? To break it down and to explain why I descend from the tribe of Gad, right? It's the spirit, you know. So, you know, kind of going back to the point, right? Going back to the point, back to the Levitcus. Well, obviously still on the point of the male. So Exodus 28 of verse 1. And take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office, even Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, Ithamar, Aaron's sons. So these are the priests. But the priest is not everyone. The priests pertain to a particular lineage, right? Coming out of what? The lineage of Aaron and his sons, right? So they have a special role being in control of the priesthood and sacrifices. And then obviously you have the other tribes within the house of Levi that were called to bear certain burdens as well, right? Numbers 4. It's the book of Numbers, chapter 4. I'll start from Numbers 4. I'll start from I've deleted these comments. Numbers 4. And you can read Numbers 4 and 4, right? Or you can read quite a few. It says, this shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. So, and when the camp set forward, Aaron shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of testimony with it. So they would take down, see that, the ark. And just a quick point, Aaron's rod, the two testimonies of stone, and I believe there's some manna as well that are in the Ark of the Covenant, right? The tabernacle. So they would take down. That's too small, right? The specific objects would be allocated to the specific houses, right? So it says that they would take down. They would take the most holy things, right? They would take the ark and cover the ark with the veil, right? And they shall put, verse 6, and they shall put, so Numbers 4 and 6, and shall put thereon the covering of badger skin, and shall spread over it a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put staves, and shall put in the staves thereof. And upon the table of showbread they shall spread a blue cloth, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and covers to cover withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon. And they shall spread. So, point being, when you read through this, there's certain things that the sons of Aaron, this is their office, what they got to do, right? Going into the sons of Kohath. But it's just, so the high priest, he would obviously come, and his sons, and they would take down these things and cover these things, right? I'm going to jump down. I'll jump down to verse 15. And when Aaron and his sons have made an end of covering the sanctuary and all the vessels, the camp is set to move forward. After that, the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it, but they shall not touch any holy thing, lest they die. These are the things, these things are the burden of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation. So then they would bear that, right? Let's read, let's maybe see. How would they have bear that? Maybe they, let's see. So they carried the holy things of the tabernacle on their shoulders, carrying poles, without the aid of carts or oxen. So they would have walked with that, right? They would have walked with that. That's quite a good pose. I like that. Let's check this. And it says Numbers 4. See that? Zoe Alvarez. So, sons of Kohath, they carried the ark, showbread, the golden altar. And you see how they kind of show it being covered, right? The sons of Gershon, fabrics, the curtains. So each different houses would have different roles pertaining to, these sacrifices. I mean, no, not sacrifices. Pertaining to the instruments and the holy things within the tabernacle. Right, so I'm going to jump down. So this is the book of Numbers, chapter 18. And I'll start from 1. It's Numbers 18 and 1. And the Lord said unto Aaron, thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary, and thou and thy sons with thee shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood. Right? So Aaron, they couldn't say, like, I want to be a basketball player. I want to be a Twitch streamer. I want to do this. They got to bear the iniquity, right, of being in the priesthood. And that was a great thing, man. It says, verse 2, and thy brethren also of the tribe of Levi, the tribe of thy father, bring thou with thee, that they may be joined unto thee and minister unto thee. But thou and thy sons shall minister before the tabernacle of witness. Right? So the sons of Levi, different families, Kohath, Merari, Gershon, they would have different roles. Right? And that's why when you look at the positioning of the tabernacle, right? Right? You had the different houses that were set up round about. Right. I can't find it so quickly. Okay, this is cool. We use this. So see how it shows you the Kohathites, Gershonites, Merarites, Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons. They would be right here. Right? So Numbers 18 and verse 3. It says, and they shall keep thy charge and the charge of all the tabernacle. Only, right, they shall not come nigh the vessel of the sanctuary and the altar, that neither they nor ye also die. And they shall be joined unto thee. And so let's say, I don't know, a Gershonite kind of runs in, starts picking stuff up. Oh, hold on, you got to move this, guys. You would have, most I would have got rid of it. All right. The Numbers 18 and 4, and they shall be joined unto thee, and keep the charge of the tabernacle of the congregation for all the service of the tabernacle, and a stranger shall not come nigh unto you. Right, reading on. And ye shall keep the charge of the sanctuary and the charge of the altar, that there be no wrath any more upon the children of Israel. And I behold, I have taken your brethren, the Levites, from among the children of Israel. To you they are given as a gift for the Lord to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Just like we've shown the different families that were positioned round about the tabernacle. It says, verse 7, therefore thou and thy sons with thee shall keep your priest's office. So the sons of Aaron, they got the priest's office for everything of the altar and within the veil, and ye shall serve. And it says, I have given your priest's office unto you as a service of gift, and the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. So a Judite kind of rolling up, right? And obviously Yahushua, he is the high priest, right? Like it says in Hebrews 7 and 14, tribe, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning the priesthood, paraphrasing, right? Verse 8, it says, and the Lord spake unto Aaron, behold, I have also given thee the charge of mine heave offerings, of all the hallowed things of the children of Israel. Unto thee have I given them by reason of anointing, and to thy sons by ordinance forever. So they have the Levites, they got that office of sons of Aaron and the Levites of, when the camp was to be set forth, like you read in Numbers 10, they'll kind of pack up, this family deals with that family deals with this, that family deals with this, right? Let's get another precept, right? Numbers 4 and verse 3, right? Because it kind of shows you why Christ didn't come before, his ministry starts around the age of 30, right? This is Numbers 4 and 3, from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation, which is literally why we don't see Yahushua on the scene until that time, because now that's he starting his ministry, you know, and really that's showing the comparison of the him being, foreshadowing being that high priest, right? Let's go to Numbers. Right, let's like it. Read on in Leviticus 7, and we read verse 7. Leviticus 7:7. As the sin offering is, so is a trespass offering. There is one law for them. The priest maketh an atonement therewith, shall have it. So a guilt offering, that's what I said at the beginning, a guilt offering and a sin offering, right? Which guilt offering and sin offering are the same thing. So a guilt offering obviously being a trespass offering, and a sin offering, they're the same thing. I'm not speaking Chinese, right? So a trespass offering deals with sins that obviously require restitution, right? And the priest, the mediator, right? Which is Yahushua, he deals with them, right? The book of First Timothy, chapter 2 and verse 5. For there is one power, or one God, the Most High, and one mediator between God and men, the man, Yahushua, the Mashiach, right? That's Christ, that's the mediator, right? Let's get another one. Hebrews 5. Hebrews. Book of Hebrews, chapter 5, and I'll start from verse number 5. It says, so also Christ glorified not himself to be made an high priest, but he that said unto him, thou art my son, today have I begotten thee. Right? So he was made a high priest to bear our iniquities. I read that in Isaiah 53 as well. Right? But right now, we're waiting to see our Redeemer. Right? This is Job 9. Yeah. Job 9 and verse number 33. It says, neither is there any days man betwixt us that might lay his hand upon us both, because that's really the mediator that would lay hands on, like this is about the scapegoat. That's what a high priest would do, right, to mediate between us and the Most High. Right, so this is the book of Levitcus, chapter 7. Go back to verse 8. Book of Leviticus, chapter 7, verse number 8. It says, and the priest that offereth any man's burnt offering, even the priest shall have to himself the skin of burnt offering which he have offered. Right? Because Aaron's son, they didn't have, we read that in Numbers 35, right? They didn't have allotment, they didn't have an allotted land, right? So the skin of the burnt offering, right, what could that be used for? Right, for garments. They could have sold that, got some money, right? Let's just show that as well. Let's see. So it says personal property, or see that? That's a new word. Prerequisite. Perquisite, a benefit which one enjoys or is entitled to on the account of one's job. Right. So they could have used that for themselves, right, as a commodity in the ancient world, right, like leather. They could have made something, or they could trade or sell it for other necessities. So they could make money off of that. So that was literally their daily living, right? Let's get Numbers, right? The book of Numbers, chapter 18 and verse 20, because we read Numbers 35, which shows they didn't have an allotted land. the book of Numbers 18 and 20. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, Thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shalt thou have any part among them. I am thy part, and thine inheritance among the children of Israel. And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tenth in Israel for inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Neither must the children of Israel henceforth come nigh the tabernacle of the congregation, lest they bear their sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they have no inheritance. Verse 24. But the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer as an heave offering unto the Lord, I have given to the Levites to inherit. Therefore I have said unto them, among the children of Israel, they shall have no inheritance. So literally, their inheritance, they would have kind of got that from, again, money being made, food, right? Food, or the coats, the skin coats, to sell, to trade, commodity, make stuff, level, right, etc. Man, that's what they would have made it out, used it for, right? Let's get Levitcus 7 and verse number 9. It says, and all the meat offering that is baked in the oven, and all that is dressed in a frying pan, and in the pan shall be the priest that offer. So straight up and down, those things that were cooked, that would be in the priest, right? That offered it, right? Plain upon table, right? Let's go to verse. Right, it's the book of Leviticus 7 and 10. And every meat offering mingled with oil and dry shall all the sons of Aaron have one as much as another. Man. So, every time, just because it says meat doesn't mean it's damn chicken, right? Because even when you go into like heave offerings, really it's going into like wheat and flour, essentially, right? When you read like when you go into like Pentecost, right? Because it's going into like the harvesting, right? So, and obviously oil, used for, richness and fatness, right? Let's see. One more precept. It's Hebrews chapter 13, right, and verse 15. It says, by him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to Yahweh continually. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. So that's the end will be on, right? Oh, that's one thing I forgot, man. One thing I forgot, right? Ezekiel 45, maybe? I get one more, right? Ezekiel 45. Because there you had the priest, right? The prince, rather, that's the house, right? Right? The prince, and he's given, he's doing the sacrifices, man. Right? The book of Ezekiel, chapter 45, and I'll start from verse 45, and I'll start from verse 16. Ezekiel 45 and 16, it says, all the people of the land shall give this oblation for the prince of Israel. Right, the prince of Israel is going unto Yahushua, right, and an oblation, right, see that, something that's offered, right, a sacrifice. Right, verse 17, And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moon. So, hey, so hold on. It's not a Levite. It's Yahushua. On the new moons, and he's whipping it up, man. He's cooking, right? Why would it be off for us to cook on a new moon, which is a feast day? You wouldn't have a cold oxen, right? It's a feast, right? And in the Sabbath and in all solemnities of the house of Israel, he shall prepare the sin offering and the meat offering and the burnt offering and the peace offering. This is to make reconciliation for the house of Israel, right? So the priest, he's getting down, man. And I'll close out with this, Matthew 6 and 10. So it's not that it's not that the sacrificing is done. It's just that we don't have a priesthood. No one can prove their lineage. It's Matthew 6 and verse 10. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Right? Give us today our daily bread. Hashem Yahushua. Right? So, right, Lord willing, we're edified by that. Hashem Yahushua. Right? Kind of going into the sacrifices and things of such nature. Right, but it will praise the Hashem Yahushua. That I say, come inshallah. Shalom.